Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people that want the best info, but just don't have the time. Get your podcast fix with the Cliff Notes versions of your favorite podcasts. No fluff, just the actionable golden nuggets. Having this much knowledge at your fingertips should be downright illegal. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Performance Enhancing Podcast, episode 41. I cannot believe it. And at the end, I'm actually going to give you guys a little surprise here. We're running an unbelievable contest for the next 2 weeks, basically giving away a 60-minute one-on-one consultation with myself and my brother, plus $100 gift certificates, plus other consultations, all just for simply leaving a rating, comment, and review on our iTunes page. We're trying to make a big push with our ratings and comments and figured we'd give you guys some kick-ass prizes. So we're going to do a 2-week drawing. You can listen to the end. I'll give you all the details, but if you want to find out now, you can just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast contest. Again, SatoriPrime.com/podcast contest, and all the details will be there. So for now, enjoy this interview, and we'll talk to you soon. So one of the most downloaded podcasts I've had to date is a series I did about Joe Navarro's book, What Everybody Is Saying. Now, playing real ballsy, I decided, hey, look, this went off incredibly well. Why not reach out to this acclaimed author, right? New York bestselling author, and say, listen, I have a podcast. I'd love to do an interview with you, right? How crazy am I? But guess what? He said yes. So for the next 30 minutes, you guys are going to get to hear an interview I did with Joe Navarro. I got to tell you, we jumped right in. I asked him all these great questions. People actually gave me feedback on questions they wanted to answer. So a couple of you, I actually asked your questions live to Joe. It was an incredible conversation. He is as gifted, if not even more in person than he is in his book. So enjoy this absolute gem of an interview, which I still can't believe I got, and let me know how you enjoyed it. So here goes, my interview with Joe Navarro, the author of What Everybody Is Saying. Enjoy. Awesome. So Joe, thank you so much for being here with our listeners. It's an absolute honor. I told you offline that our listeners have been eating up my notes on your book. So I'm super excited to be here with you today and just ask you a few follow-up questions. So welcome.
It's great to be here, Ilan.
Awesome. So here's the first thing I want to just ask you, because I think for a lot of people, this whole nonverbal communication thing is so new, even as you mentioned in the book. And you've taught, I'm assuming, thousands of people to do this. So being that you mentioned observation is the key to mastering nonverbal communications, are there some exercises that you can share with us that people can take into their lives right now to start working on their observation skills?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, our parents teach us to look. They don't really teach us to observe. And we can do it two ways. We can do it with the world around us, or we can do it with individuals. I always say start with the world around you, and as you walk through a parking lot and so forth, just ask yourself, all right, how many white cars, how many black cars, how many gray cars, how many blue cars? And it's a very simple exercise, and just pick any parking lot. And what it does is you habituate your brain to do this very elegant calculus, where at first it's cognitive, and then later it almost becomes subconscious. And you would be surprised if you do this often enough that you can go into a parking lot, and without sitting there and counting, your brain will, after a while, will actually figure out how many cars of which there are. You might be off by one, but it's extremely accurate. And of course, you can do that with other objects and things. And then with with people, I always teach, all right, look for comfort and discomfort. And one of the ways that you can do it is turn on the TV, watch one of the reality shows, turn the sound off. And you will soon become very adept at picking up there's issues. There's some sort of issue. Either things are good or there's some sort of issue. And you can quickly train yourself to then begin to pick up on the subtleties. Well, where did I see that discomfort? Oh, I noticed the lips compressed as the other person was talking. There's an issue.
Interesting. So one of the things you also kind of came up for me as I was going through the book was the phenomenon that you just mentioned, which our parents have kind of taught us from a very young age that staring is bad. Don't look at people. And I think as we grow older, that notion of looking at people are so uncomfortable to even look at each other in the eyes. It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's really uncomfortable? I mean, I really like the reality TV thing because it kind of gives you that barrier.
Mm-hmm.
But then now next step is kind of taking that into the real world.
Sure.
You're in a business meeting, you're in a conference room, you're on a, call like us. If we were doing video, what do you tell those people?
Well, I tell them what every FBI agent knows, and that is when you're conducting surveillance, you never make eye-to-eye contact. That's the easiest way to get picked up. What you learn to do is relax your eyes so that if I look at, let's say we're in a board meeting and I'm looking down at the table, I can see everybody in the room. I can see what they're wearing. I can see their expressions without really staring at them. And that's another technique that you work at, is how to look at people without making that eye contact. And you can get very good at it very quickly, and still be able to pick up on things like blink rate and, where's the chin in relation to the throat and so forth. And all the little things that you need to pick up that are indicative of either comfort, discomfort, confidence, or lack of confidence, or issues. Very easy to do without having to stare directly at the face. And I know in New York, you're standing there in a subway. You really don't want to stare at anybody.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, I had an armed person confront me, and so yeah, you don't want to antagonize people, so you do it very subtly.
Okay, interesting. Now, I want to kind of switch a little bit of a gear here. Our business and a lot of our listeners, everything is moving into this digital world, right?
Yep.
And we, now we're doing Skype meetings. And so, whereas before everything was kind of done on handshake, today I feel like everything has gone, virtual conferences. We, for example, create a lot of video sales letters. So how are these skills now being translated? Are you kind of seeing that there's a movement to this? And what are you doing with that?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's I'm seeing two trends, and one of them is this attempt to move to completely the written form, where we're just texting or email. We're not even, with some people, we're not even calling them on the phone. It's like we don't want to hear their voices.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, there's this overwhelming need to, I got to put an emoticon in there to let them know that was a joke, or I was just kidding,
yep,
or I'm really in a happy mood, and it's almost working against us. And yet at the same time, I'm seeing where we can reach all sorts of parts of the world by being able to go to an electronic seminar, and now you're able to reach an audience that there's no way, I'm going to travel all the way to Perth, Australia for a 55-minute conference.
Correct.
Nobody's going to, pay for it. And, it just takes a long time to get there. And so you can overcome a lot of distance for it, by it. But the third thing is, and it's astonishing to me, that, and I do about 35 events a year where I go and I speak to different groups at their get-togethers, that there is still this overwhelming need to get together for two reasons. One, to hear a message from an expert, but secondly, a lot of that networking that gets done outside of the classroom is very beneficial to organizations. And I've talked to many organizations where they say, that's the only penny we get here at the end of the year. We don't get bonuses, but once a year, we go to Vegas or New Orleans or Orlando and we attend a conference, and that's what they look forward to. And we get to meet other people in the company that we never see. So I think it's like Gladwell's story of the spaghetti sauce. I think now we have many flavors to provide, and that puts us in a unique opportunity to go with the market forces and say, how does your group, or how do you prefer it? And if you don't like it this way, we will present it another way.
Yeah, I agree with that. You mentioned something interesting right now about, traveling to different parts of the world, and obviously now with the digital mediums, we have all that reach. Yeah. And I just thought for a second, there's different things in language, like where a word in English, you take that word to India and it's like a curse word or something.
Yeah.
I think from what I gathered from the book, nonverbal communication is a little more universal, just because it's run by our limbic brain. But are there things that are taboo in certain countries?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, for business people, we used to have students in Egypt who would use their thumb to try to get a ride, and they couldn't understand why they were being beat up, and they failed to understand that the thumb up display is a phallic display. In the same way that our OK sign, the finger and the index finger together in certain parts of the world, including I think in Brazil, is a sign which is a similitude of our behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you really need to be careful with these things. But even something so simple as when you go to a Japanese home, that where you put your shoes, so that Americans were always thinking about efficiency. And then you put them, you take them off and you put them down at the door, but you turn them around facing away, and of course they take offense of that. So there are many cultural things, and because there's literally thousands of cultures. I mean, there's cultures within cultures. In New York City, there's a culture Midtown and Upper East Side that is different than Queens and Brooklyn.
Yep.
So you just have to learn. You just have to learn what the cultural imperatives are, and make sure that you don't violate. And and I really abide by the rule: when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. Obviously, if you're a master of observation and you do something, then you're acutely aware of how that thing has affected the room. So it kind of plays into you. You already know if you pissed someone off or did something that didn't please them or made them uncomfortable.
Well, you have a good point, Ilan, and that is that when you have social intelligence, a lot of things don't have to be explained to you. You understand as soon as you walk in that these people you're meeting with, they need extra space, that perhaps the senior most person there is going to be allowed to talk and that everybody else will remain silent, that the person who allows you to sit first, but they stand last, will also have the last word of the day. Don't interfere. So you learn to pick up on very subtle things, the cadence of the conversation, what words are going to be used. Are we going to be speaking at a 14th grade level, or are we going to be talking at a 7th grade level?
Yeah.
All these things you pick up to make for a more engaging, a more pleasant experience, because most people think the objective is the objective, forgetting that one of the primary objectives that we have is to ensure that we guarantee our face time with whoever we're dealing with, so that we'll always be welcome back.
Yeah, I love the term you just said, social interaction intelligence. One of the things I loved in your book, and I share with everyone, like all my friends, is that moment where you walk into either like a networking event or at a bar and you see the two people standing, and when you walk up to them, whether they turn their whole body or don't move their feet, and just how simple knowing something like that gets rid of social anxiety for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just by looking at the feet, which, as you know, since you've read my books, is the most accurate part of the body, instantly, I'm going to be welcomed with this group. And what a great opportunity. They're already welcoming me without saying a word, or they're having a private conversation. Best not to interfere with them. And it may change in 10 or 15 minutes. But it's that kind of thing that alleviates a lot of social anxiety, so that you don't feel like you're committing a social faux pas. And at the same time, it allows you to engage the people around you more effectively, because they'll see, it's good to see you. You're not interrupting us when we're busy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's something, our voice in our head is just constantly, for most people, the driving factor. So they walk into that room and they're like so nervous. I have a stain on my tie. They're going to think I'm an idiot. Do they want me to talk to them? Not want me to talk? And they go through this whole thing. So even when they're present with the people, they're not really present. They're just constantly worried about what the crap is going on in their head, in case all they need to look is at the feet, and then all of a sudden it alleviates all this thing, and now you can actually be there in that moment. I thought it was just brilliant. So I want to go back to the digital medium, because this is just something that's really interesting for me. So we make a lot of videos. And I noticed one of the things we tell people to do 90-day video challenges.
Yeah.
Mostly, and this was unconscious to me until I read your book, to notice our hand displays, our eyebrows, how we hold our body, the tonality, things like that. And it's amazing what you can pick up. For me, selfishly, I'm curious, when I'm making a video sales letter, okay, and I'm trying to elicit a action from somebody.
Yeah. What
would you say, if you were coaching me, are the things, like 2-3 things that I need to focus on in those videos to make them the most effective?
Yeah. Well, I think that question has even broader applications. We know that always that standing beats sitting, but there's probably 2 behaviors which are probably axiomatic to being positively received, and that is that you want to use gravity-defying behaviors. So you want to arch the eyebrows to emphasize, and you want to use the hands that go up and out to express. You definitely want to smile as you're making a presentation. But the third is, we are in some ways sort of seduced by the hands. We want to see hands. We want to see hands that illustrate the mark, and help us to visualize things. And I've noticed a lot of people, they put their face up, but we don't see the hands, and yet a part of our brain is seeking to see the hands. And that makes for a more effective presentation, whether you're on video or in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm. And most of the videos that I've seen are kind of like waist up type videos. Very rarely do you see kind of the full body.
Yeah.
Do you think the fact that we leave out the feet because they're so imperative and they don't lie, does that hinder anything?
No, I don't think the feet are as important in those kinds of things as the hands are. For instance, we've done studies of attorneys who do opening arguments behind a podium or on the side of the podium. And invariably, mock jurors rate the attorneys more favorably when they're away from the podium and not behind them. But, then the issue becomes one of, well, in some jurisdictions, you have to stand behind it. And so we tell the attorneys then they must illustrate more with the hands. And when it comes to messaging, it definitely shows up statistically that when you gesture broad, when you do these gravity-defying behaviors, they're very effective. And of course, a natural student of this, unfortunately, was Adolf Hitler, who at first would do this in front of a mirror, and then he filmed himself. And somehow he himself figured out that these gestures are mesmerizing, and they certainly were.
Well, I got to tell you, I never in a million years thought that I'd be talking about Hitler and Nazis on any of my podcasts, but here we are. And the fact is that Joe's right. He is a master orator and someone that took it very, very seriously. Granted, he used it for complete insanity and utter evil. But the fact remains that he did something that previously no one had ever done. And I'm talking about more from the nonverbal communication standpoint. So here's the deal, guys. We're trying to get Performance Enhancing Podcast on the map in iTunes in a big, big way. And we thought of a way that you guys can help us, and in turn, we can help you. So what we're doing is we're running a contest for the next 2 weeks. The number one winner will receive a 60-minute free consultation session with my brother and myself. That's a $749 value as it stands today. Now, the second through fifth place winners will receive a substantial discount for any of our SatoriPrime products and or services. And additional to that, anyone that reviews and leaves a comment actually will receive a free 15-minute short consultation either with myself or Guy. So literally just by going out and leaving a review, you get to pick our brains for at least 15 minutes and potentially get on the phone with us for a full hour. Now, all you have to do in order to qualify is head over to iTunes and leave us a rating or a comment. If you want exact instructions, you can head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast contest. I've made you a video there with instructions and everything you need and the steps you need to take in order to qualify for this 2-week drawing. So again, a $750 1-hour consultation is up for grabs for one of you, plus a slew of other discounts, surprises, and gifts, and a 50-minute consultation for literally every single person that leaves us a rating. So again, head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast contest, and we'll share with you all the instructions there. So we're going to finish this first half of my interview with Joe Navarro, and on the next half, we're actually going to talk about all sorts of different topics, things like tips around kids, how to actually create yourself as a powerful communicator using nonverbal things before you ever walk into a boardroom, how to deal with compulsive liars, and much, much more. So if you want to hear the rest of Joe Navarro's genius interview, stay tuned for the next one. Again, thanks so much for listening, guys. Love you so much, and we'll see you on the next Performance Enhancing Podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.